Sure, give me a second.
You're my hero. Thank you for reminding me to push record.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that should plug right in.
Okay, let me... Okay, so, as you can see in this, evolution is an idea that species change over time and have a common ancestor. So, we know by looking at organisms over our time of recording history that organisms have changed. If you look at images of watermelons, they've been manipulated by humans, but if you cut the old images of cut in half watermelons, the shape of them inside was a very different thing.
Right.
The same thing with the earliest corn,
Now,
and we actually manipulated that. But
There's
there's also evidence that organisms change without human intervention, and that evolution is this change over time. Sorry, I need the caffeine today. I'm terribly tired.
You just learned more about your computer than you ever wanted.
I'm about to plug in my PowerPoint clicker so I can move the screen. Okay, so these are those you want. Natural selection is evolutionary change based on different reproductive success of individuals within a species. They call it descent with modification.
How is it up in Pennsylvania?
But organisms, because of the nature of sexual selection, some of them will have like better traits for that environment, and the ones with the better traits will have more offspring than one with less beneficial traits.
So I love that part.
So natural selection works because there's surplus reproductive capacity. Each species produces more offspring than can survive.
Yeah.
Actually, in like the most economically prosperous developed cities in the world, though, this isn't true for humans right now. We're not having more than 2 children per couple, which, excuse me, is just a replacement. But traditionally, humans have had more than can survive. Like a duck will have 20 eggs and maybe 2 or 3 will survive to adulthood. So that's surplus reproductive capacity. Organisms have more offspring than they need to replace themselves.
Yeah.
Heritable variation is there's an assortment that most of you have siblings, or how many of you guys have siblings? A lot of y'all, right? Okay. Amaya, if you want to talk, go ahead and open your microphone. So, do you have all the same features and traits that your sibling does?
All right, I want to keep the shroud off for another minute.
No. So,
plug the system back in, make sure your mouse
is connected. I have a foster sister, but for sake of argument, she and I came from the same parents. We didn't, but we're going to pretend this. I have orange hair and she has blonde hair. So, yeah, so Juliana, you will have many features in common with your twin, but because it's a paternal twin, there is still going to be a lot of variation. Even identical twins have different personalities, and those personalities are variation. So, okay, so my sibling has bright blonde hair and no freckles. I have darker orange hair and freckles. If the ozone layer completely depleted and radiation started being more of a problem, because I have this more melanin in my skin, I'm less susceptible to skin cancer than her. And if the radiation became a major problem that we didn't have a cultural adaptation for, I would have a better chance of surviving long enough to have more babies and to tend to those babies into adulthood.
Okay. This time it's going to ask you, let it do its thing.
Of course, actually, the truth is, the more education a woman has, the less babies she has. And because she left high school and had 3 children, she actually has far more reproductive success. So college actually is the variable that makes me less reproductively successful. I didn't tell you all that. Don't listen to that. But that's what heritable variation is, because even though we came from the same parents, we have different variables that make us more successful reproductively.
Can you look in the windows? All right. Okay, here's what we're going to do real quick on your desktop.
Here's another variable. There's limits on reproductive growth. There's competition. Like whichever one can get more food, whichever one can outcompete the others, whichever can hide from predators better, has an edge in survival. And there's also competition between different species. So different trees are competing for the same amount of light, competing for the same amount of water, and the ones that can outcompete each other have an edge as a species too. So there's limits on population growth. There's not enough food for every organism born. Not enough resources for every organism. So some of them are going to be able to outcompete the others. And then there's differential reproductive success, which is what I was talking about. Those best able to survive pass on their genes to the next generation. Successful traits are more likely to be passed on. Unfavorable traits will be eliminated over time. We're lucky that we have culture to make up for some of our problems, because if we were in the wild, if we were no longer the cultural creatures that we are, if we were born into the wild, I would be at a serious hindrance, because I can't see. Culture allows me to have glasses to see, but everybody, or just about everybody, even those with bad eyes, could outcompete me for food resources, outcompete me for mate resources. So I wouldn't be able to eat as well. I'd be weaker. I wouldn't be able to find mates. So I might not have as many babies, and I wouldn't be able to protect them as well because I couldn't see the dangers. So bad eyes like mine would be selected against evolutionarily, like quickly. And that's how we say evolution works. It's not just random accidents, it's the ones that can outcompete do the best.
You're good to go. Now you can get your Destiny 2 on.
Any questions so far?
I have a PC now, and play with your friends or shoot them, whatever you want to do. Or both. Whatever.
No? Okay.
All right.
So,
anything else
artificial selection.
I let you go?
This is the one that we've manipulated. This is the one that we can see and know and we've had a hand in. So, dogs originally came from the template of wolf. And wolves and humans, both pack organisms, found out that they worked well together. And over time, humans were able to manipulate those wolves to breed with other nicer wolves. They bred them to be more loyal. The ones that were loyalist were kept and fed more, treated better. The ones that were mean and awful were either killed or just not taken care of. So over time, we bred for docility, we bred for different traits we liked, and that's how we bred. Some bred for intelligence, like the standard poodle is a really intelligent dog. The teacup ones were bred for cute, not intelligence. The golden retriever was bred for loyalty, for companionability. So we started selecting traits we liked, and we have all these breeds of dogs now. Oh, that's a picture of my late doggies in the middle. I don't have them anymore. I'm sad. But they were such good dogs. Both lazy. They were bred for lazy. Okay, so a niche is an organism where an organism lives and how it fits into its environment, how it interacts with other animals.
Thank you for
Welcome,
calling Origin.
Sebastian.
Can I help you?
So a niche is not just the environment, but what part that organism plays in that environment it lives in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's a question for you. What are you looking for as far as hard drives?
Give me a second. So I just want to give you an organism's adapted for an environment when its physical traits and behaviors allow it to survive in a particular place.
Okay, I will tell you.
So
The best way to go, if you don't mind, is to go with
animals can adapt to their environment as the environment changes. Well, first, an animal in an environment, over time, their offspring are better and better adapted to that environment, but they can also be pre-adapted. So if an organism has big webbed feet, but it had nothing to do with the environment it lived in, it just happened to have big webbed feet, in a dry environment, those webbed feet wouldn't make that much of a difference. But if there had been floods and the environment changed and made it into a swamp or a lake-type area, and that organism with those webbed feet would now be at a serious advantage to be able to swim better or walk on mud better. So they were pre-adapted to that environment.
Yes.
Does everybody already know this Mendelian evolution and how these genes are passed on? Because Darwin is the one that came. I mean, everybody gets it in high school bio.
We'll walk you through installing it.
So Darwin came up with these ideas of natural selection that I was talking about, but he had no freaking idea how it worked. He just saw over years of studying, like barnacles and tortoises and everything, that it did work. But around the same time, he was looking at barnacles. Can you imagine how boring it must be to study barnacles? Well, he liked it. So at the same time, a monk was working with peas, and he was the one that.
All right.
Rachel, that's fine. He's the one that came up with how this assortment happened. He said every parent plant has 2 genes it can pass on per trait. So, like for flower type, the pea plants he was working on, there was a pink variant and a white variant of the flower. There was a green variant and a yellow variant of the pea. There was a wrinkled and a smooth variant of the pea skin. And he's like, every organism has 2 of each to pass on. And he was able to come up with this formula for figuring out how this inheritance happened. And luckily, by some random happenstance in the universe, there was a guy who just happened to have read both their works, and then it's like, eureka, I figured out how Darwin's thing worked. Somebody here in Austria wrote about it. I'm assuming he wrote it in not English, so it was just a very lucky coincidence that he happened to find that, because it could have been a lot more time before they figured it out. Okay, so these traits that are passed on are genes, and the variations within that one gene are called alleles. They're the expressions of the trait. So if we have 2 traits here, so short tail, long tail, white fur, brown fur, the dominant gene in that first generation of kittens, they'll all be brown fur, short tail. But in the next generation, when they have kittens, most of them will have the short tail and the brown fur. 1 in 16 will inherit both of those traits, get the recessive allele. And if you guys really want to know more about that, I could go into it, but just know that this is how these assortments are passed on. and the ones that are better suited to their environment, better able to compete, are the ones that are going to survive. Okay. So there's dominant and there's recessive. I talked about the dominant is the one that shows if there's two alleles and they're not identical, one is usually dominant, one is recessive. The dominant one shows, the recessive one is there, usually unexpressed. Sometimes there's codominance, like in sickle cell anemia, it's codominant, and the sickle cell trait will express some, but not enough to kill whoever has it, but it will actually help them from malaria, like I mentioned before. The phenotype, I want you to know what a phenotype is. That is the part of the gene code that shows up. So genotype is what's inside, phenotype is what's expressed on the outside. So in this case, orange fur on humans is the recessive trait. So my grandparents, the grandfather had a dominant gene for brown fur and a recessive gene for the red. The grandmothers on both sides had 2 recessive genes and are expressed as redheads. So if you look at both my parents, well, there's bald, but that doesn't count. But they both have brown hair. My parents in that pairing, give me a second to grab a sheet of paper and a Sharpie. Oh no, sorry, that's not scrap paper, that's my cat's rabies receipt. You know, the stuff to prove that they had their shots. Okay. So my parents had a B and an R and a B and an R. Hold on just a moment. Okay, he turned down that, whatever it was. B-E. Okay. So, my parents, brown allele, red allele, brown allele, red allele. They could have had a child that was homozygous for brown hair. This person could not pass on a red hair gene. They don't have one. If one parent gave me their brown allele and one their red, I would have brown hair. There was a 50-50 shot. I could have been born with brown hair but a red allele, but there's a 3 in 4 chance I would have been born with red hair. I just happened to get both. I'm homozygous for the recessive allele, red hair. I only have red hair genes to pass on to my offspring. So you guys see how that works, right? Not rocket science, really. Biology. Okay. So I got the 1 in 25 chance of having the homozygous for the recessive allele. I had a 1 in 25 chance of being homozygous for the dominant allele, and I had a 50-50 shot of being heterozygous for both. See, here's the words. Genotypes is what's inside. Homozygous is the same. Heterozygous is 2 different alleles. Any questions on this? It's tedious. Okay, so codominant, like I said about sickle cell anemia, there's a whole bunch of different things that'll give you that. And there's 2 kinds of codominance. There's mixed dominance, and then there's just flat out codominance. So it could a red and white flower could give you a pink flower, or it could give you this pretty one on top. Oh, incomplete dominance. That's what this top one is. So for each organism, there's a combination of traits passed down from its parents and their parents and their parents. An individual is made up of a combination of hundreds of genes that have been sorted down through thousands of generations. You have genes that have been passed on from thousands and thousands of years ago, and that's kind of neat. Like that nose that runs in families and has been passed down for hundreds of years. Okay. So I'm going to be quick about how mutation is any spontaneous change in the genetic code. Are all mutations bad? Answer me. Are all mutations bad? No. Good. Yes. Well, originally when they came into the gene code, because it looks like all the early hominids probably had brown eyes. But as their ancestors left Africa and moved into Europe, a blue-eyed trait happened. And it was originally a mutation. But then it just became part of the gene pool. So it became part of the gene pool. Well, limited gene pool isn't the same as inbreeding. So there's something called the founder effect. So if your ancestors, 500,000 years ago, left Africa, actually 2 million years ago, it looks like the Neanderthals were blue-eyed. So a couple million years ago, this group had left Africa and settled in Europe, and they started getting new traits. They were going to breed within the population that they knew. And so this gene kept getting passed on through communities. And so if you have a community that this is exactly what these slides are. So we're going to go with blue eyes instead of the big teeth I usually talk about. So see this little monster in the middle that doesn't look like the other fairies? That gene pool now has the mutation for big strong teeth or blue eyes, doesn't matter. So now that this mutation is there and it's not harmful, it's in the population. In this case, it proved helpful for some reason, and that organism was able to pass on those genes. Even if it wasn't harmful, if it wasn't harmful, it would still get passed on, but if it gave an advantage, it would get passed on faster. In this case, my monster here is able to break through nuts a little bit better than the other members of its species. And so it's able to outcompete. And then there's fission. So remember how I said that we left Africa millions of years ago? They're now divided by an ocean. And they don't have that gene in that original population, and Europe's cut off from Africa, and so they're not trading those genes back and forth. So that mutation, more of that group has that mutation, and it's a smaller mating pool, so they'll be able to pass it on better, and that's the founder effect. The small group that founds a community, well, now you'll find a bigger percentage of that gene or those genes because they're the ones passing it on. So imagine there's a cruise for redheaded people, like a redheads convention on a cruise ship, and it crashes. And they're on an island with no other population, nobody can save them. After 100 generations, that founder pool, because it was mostly with this recessive gene, the majority of that future population, their descendants, will have the recessive gene for red hair. And more of that population will be red hair. Kind of like Ireland. And bits of more Scotland, actually. And that's actually sexual selection, where they pick others with that feature. So as time goes on, the founder effect will become noticeable, since the gene pools for the two populations will be different. And then over time, they speciate, because the old gene, the old allele will die out, and if they're separated long enough, there'll be more mutations, and then they're not the same anymore. Have you guys heard about the moth during the Industrial Revolution with the brown and white wings? Some of you have. It's a neat story. So, So there was this moth that originally they lived on birch trees. Actually, let me just pull up a picture of this moth, because I can. Moth. Evolution, Darwin. Peppered moth. Here we go. And now let me transfer my application over to Chrome tab of the peppered moth. Okay. So originally this moth was white because they blended into the side of a birch tree. Birch trees were white. And so there was an allele for brown wings, which on a normal birch tree, the brown wing moth would stand out and they would get eaten fast. But there was enough of them that had this gene that they happened every once and again. But then the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s happened to England, and you know, industrialists, they have smokestacks because they were run on steam, and the steam was run on coal, and there would be smokestacks to run their textile machines, to run all the different machinery in those textiles, or in those factories. And over time, the buildings and the trees were covered with soot. And so now, instead of the white tree and the white moth having camouflage there, if the white moth landed on the tree, it was still covered in pollution, it would stand out and the birds would eat them faster. And so then almost all the moths in England of this species were grays and browns, and they blended in with the buildings and the trees. And then England decided over a long period of time, yeah, this pollution's kind of bad, we should clean it up. And the trees started getting whiter again, the buildings started getting whiter again, and so now the white moths could blend in better, and they started making a resurgence, but never really to the level that the white moths had before, and now there's two variations. So you see a lot of these grayish brown moths, and you see a lot of these white moths, because it changed the pool. So now there isn't a selective advantage really for either one of them. It's a neutral thing. Whereas before, having that brown allele then became a really pre-adaptive feature to the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, I know. If we look at history, every story I could tell is sad. It depends on how you spin it. Think about all the brown moths now that have a chance at being healthy and happy. And now there's no difference between them. They're both equally selected for and against. Yay! It's a spin. Okay.
All right, give me about an hour, okay?
Let me go back. Oh, did you guys know that England also had a speciation event from, you guys know what the London Blitz is, right? Germany was bombing England really heavy during the Second World War. And people were, you might have seen it at the very beginning of the Narnia movie, but England was getting bombed, and so the humans ran into the subway tunnels as an official refuge from these German bombs. Mosquitoes were getting caught in people's clothing and getting pulled into the tunnels with the humans. They didn't fly down that low generally, and the humans were bringing them into the underground, into the subway tunnels with them. And because mosquitoes don't tend to fly higher than 10 feet, they couldn't get back out once they were in. And so in the 1940s, this group of mosquitoes started breeding with itself, reproducing in the puddles. They never really got back out to the outside mosquitoes. And so over the last, what has it been, 70 years since World War II? These mosquitoes actually kept to themselves long enough that they're a whole new species of mosquitoes. So hooray, World War II created a new species. Or at least one we know of. I don't think that's a good trade-off for World War II. But it's what we got if you want to put a spin on it. Okay, back to my lecture screen 2. Share audio. Share. Get over here. Click. Okay, so environment and adaptation are responsible for the modification of species, as well as the evolution of new species, or speciation. And how do we know about life in the past? We study the strata, or layers of soil under the earth. When we talk about archaeology, the strata is all important. We can see decades go by. We can see new populations come and go by the color of the dirt. When humans live in a place, the soil gets to be much more darker. There's because, we shed skin cells, we have campfires, we have waste, and the area where humans live tends to be darker, so we can see sorry, the word's out of my head, but we can see human-made strata or human-altered strata. So stratigraphy is taken from geology. It's the study of the Earth's strata, the different layers. And in evolution, we can see millions of years, and certain organisms are only found in certain layers. Okay. And we study fossils. Okay, no, that's not true. I lied to you. Paleontologists and paleoarchaeologists, wait, where's the word? Shoot. Well, paleontologist is the study of fossilized organisms, but specifically we study the pre-human ancestors. These bones here on my desk are not fossils. The difference is fossils, over time, geological processes take all the organic material out of the bones and they replace it with minerals. In these bones, there's still collagen, there's still fat, there's still all kinds of organic matter. Fossils no longer have organic matter in them. These are not fossils, these are just bones. So paleontology is the study of past life forms using fossil remains and their geological contexts. Okay, I'm going to try to click on this link and show you this video. I might have to actually just go to the link and share the screen of that. Come on. Second. Wait. Guys, just go to the damn link, please. Why are you disobeying me? Obey me. Okay. Let's see what it's showing you guys on your screen. Let's just make it. Nope, it didn't show it to you. So I will now share this screen with you. Chrome tab. New fossil species. Whoops. Unshare because I didn't click share with audio. I wish it would just do that as a default. Okay. So not too long ago. Okay, 5 years ago. So not too long ago. Anthropologists discovered Homo naledi. We didn't know about it, but we know now. I mean, it's very obvious that it's in the human line. We don't know if it's a direct relative of ours or it's a cousin on another branch. But I love the way this guy talks about it. You guys can't see this. Yes, you can. Goody.
Naledi is a fantastic new species, part of our family tree. Where it fits is something that's going to be the next phase of study. What we know about it is quite a lot right now. We know about it from 1,550 elements so far, although we have thousands left in the Dinwiddie chamber where we discovered it. It's a tall, primitive human ancestor with a stood about 5 feet tall, a small grain about the size of a large orange, but a very human-like character to the overall plan of the skull. It's got small teeth, like yours, but primitive in their shape and form, which lets us know that it's somewhere in that transitional stage of an early human, an early member of our genus, but not quite to where we are yet. How it fits, that waits to be seen. But from here downward is where Naledi gets really strange. It's got an ape-like shoulder complex, an ape-like core, or a primitive core within our lineage, that something more like the most primitive hominins like Lucy or Mrs. Ples, right down to the pelvis. When you move down below, though, and you go down below the leg, it's had long legs, which culminate in this incredibly human-like foot, something that was a complete surprise. Because if you pop up back to the top and look at the arms, you see they become more and more human-like as you move away from that primitive shoulder until you reach the wrist, which is incredibly human-like, the palm, which is human-like. The whole plan of the hand is human-like, but the distal fingers are some of the most curved we've ever seen in the entire human ancestor record. So what we have overall is something we've never seen before. A creature out of the past that clearly gives us a signal to the origins of perhaps our species, but in a way we don't understand at this moment.
Neat video, huh? Okay. Talk to me, everybody. Anybody have any comments on this? Yeah, I was so excited when they discovered this. I think so. They're very human looking. So, actually, there's a video on this link that's in your PowerPoint. I want to. I'm not going to show it to you because time is fleeting. But the main researcher on this project took took graduate students, people who are just starting out in the, can you hear me? Just starting out in the fields of paleontology and archaeology, and he took, 20, 30 of these young graduate students with their fresh ideas, and they got to just go wild, all researching this, like as a summer archaeology camp, really. they were in the lab and they were working together, making 3D models, like speculating on how they're related to the other fossil hominids. And it's just like the coolest collaboration. It's not just one seasoned veteran in paleoanthropology. It was all these young up-and-comers with the latest theories and stuff behind them. So if you ever get a chance, that video is so amazing. It would be so neat to be a part of that. Okay. And now I step down. That was just so exciting, though. Okay. Sophia says, it's interesting how the center of the body, like the shoulders, were ape-like and the hands and feet were more human-like. It seems to imply that evolution started around those parts of our limbs. Okay. So what it looks like to us is we wanted to exploit new food sources. So out in the savannah, we became bipedal. We became upright, two-legged organisms with very, very small brains. Our feet were actually what makes us humans before our brains do. I mean, they caught up pretty fast, but yeah. So as we got upright, we had our hands free to use tools. So then we started using tools while we were still pretty... Okay, chimps in the animal world are pretty damn smart. Monkeys in the animal world are pretty damn smart, but chimps beat us in IQ tests for the first 3 years of our life. Not an IQ test, but in learning, they learn faster than us on everything. With a chimp and human are raised together. For the first 3 years, chimps always beat the little kids. But then at age 3, we start surpassing them for intellectual capabilities, and our ability to do stuff like outstrips them by the time we're 3 years old. But so we're smarter, according to us determining what smart means. And we started using tools before we became smart. By using tools, it made us smarter, and we got better at making tools, and that feedback cycle I mentioned in the first class. Okay. Let me get us back to the lecture. I meant for us to talk about last week's papers last week, and I was trying to rush us off, but I'm going to give time for us to talk about today's paper and last week's paper a little bit, if I can rush us through this. Okay. Sorry, how do I get back to share application window? Seriously, share audio should be the default. So, share already. Okay. So, fossils are how we know about past life. Bones and other material are how we learn about recent dead. Okay, do I want to talk about this? Okay, just know Linnaeus set up a classification system, the binomial nomenclature. The two-name system we use now is by Linnaeus. I'm going to mention him tomorrow because, yeah, we got a great naming system out of him, but he went too far and started trying to divide humans into subspecies. And we know that that's wrong, bad, and terrible. But Homo sapiens is 2 words. Sapiens is always lowercase, just for when you're writing about it. But our proper name is Animalia chordata, vibrata, Mammalia, Theria, Euteria, Primates, Anthropodia, Hominidae, Hominidae, Homo sapiens, Hilbert Michelin. It would be my proper name if I was going to introduce myself to an alien species. And this shows that from like Homo, I'm an upright organism. You need to have 2 feet to be in the genus Homo. From primates, I have strong brachiating arms. I have diurnal vision that sees forward. Binocular vision. From Mammalia, I have fur. and of course mammary glands. So here's the part where I'm going to talk about these bones I have. If everything in the chordata line has a spinal cord, and my mom was very nice to string together a squirrel spinal cord for me. I don't know where she got the patience to do this, but this bony spinal cord here, share video. Let's see if this thing obeys me. There we go. Share. Share. Yes, video is working. Thank you. Pleasure doing business with you. Why does this want to be hard on me? Okay. So here we go. After all this work, does it not want to present? Okay. Anyway, this bony spinal cord here protects the bundle of nervous fiber that runs to our axes, to our legs, to our arms, and sends impulses from our brain down to all the other parts of our body. Let me see. After all this work, it's not working. Okay. Now it's working. I'll try to get back in a minute. I rehearse this like crazy too. I'm frustrated it's not working. Okay. If you would have come into the classroom last night or this morning, you would have saw me rehearsing it. Okay. So there's degrees of similarity and difference between two organisms. And so we share chordata with obviously squirrels, with cows, with all the other primates. And we have these similar, we all have a bony spinal cord protecting our bony spinal column protecting our spinal cord. Other organisms far, far apart from us, like insects, they don't have any, they have an exoskeleton protecting all their good soft bits. We have it just specifically on our, the cord. And we have these analogous features. So if you look at the bone, the humerus of a human, it's very similar to the humerus of a dog, of a bird, of a whale, which is what you're seeing here. That we all started from the same basic template, and then over time, so whales, they got big, they started just exclusively swimming, like their ancestors were terrestrial hippo-like animals that then just stopped going on land, and their humerus, see in this picture how thick and wide it is? It's changed to now be part of a flipper system. The bones that we have as hands, the tarsals, metatarsals, phalanges, they changed, they don't grasp, they are used to swim. So it's the same basic building blocks for all of these animals. Now let's see if I can show you these basic building blocks of the jaws of these animals I have here. If I can, join session. Anybody want to talk to me while I'm trying to make this thing work? Yep, Sarah, open your mic.
So I had a question. It's from a little bit earlier when we were talking about Neanderthals having blue eyes. I was wondering, how do we know that? Do we have DNA we can extrapolate that from?
Well, the thing is, we can't just look at, we have Neanderthal DNA, but we can't actually just look at it and say, this is a blue-eyed gene. There's no way to do that.
Right.
But after 50, 60 years of infighting within the anthropological field, because poor Walpuff, I got to see him at a talk, and all my other anthropologist colleagues were like, no, his ideas are terrible, it's stupid. But he was like saying, no, we have Neanderthal DNA. Europeans, a lot of us, are descended from Neanderthals. Nope, that's wrong. But then once we finally got the genome worked out, when we did, the Human Genome Project, it turns out that a lot of Europeans have a significant amount of Neanderthal DNA. So we're extrapolating from that's possibly where our blue eyes came from in European population, was this Neanderthal DNA.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I know, it's cool, it's weird, and it was seriously a lot of infighting amongst the anthropologists to get us to all agree on that. And hey, you guys are talking where I can't see what you guys are speaking. Say it aloud. What's going on? Talk to me, guys. Skip audio test. Back facing camera again. Oh, shows an easier way to do this. Yes, video is working. Okay, now close the screen. So can you see what Dr. Bones sees? We really want to show you these bones, damn it. I'm actually really glad my mother and mother-in-law didn't join in to see me floundering here. I could just tell them, hey, go to this timestamp and you may see it. Because I'd be really disappointed if they came for the bones. Oh, my mom's helping me with this collection. So my mom's been helping me process, because I've always given extra credit if the students could bring me skeletal material. But since I can't see you, I have some skeletal material here that you'll be able to see from there. Okay. Okay. Here we go. I would prefer that they were defleshed and nothing that was murdered for this class, given the choice. But I don't have fish. My neighbor gave me some fish with, fish still on it, but I'm a vegetarian and I don't want to eat it, so I don't know what to do. There's 5 bluegills in my freezer that I don't have a clue what to do with. Well, I could deflesh them, but it seems like a pity to waste food animal. Well, yes, but it wasn't murder for this. Like, this boar was killed, I suppose, for the meat. It was by a hunter. There's a bullet hole in his head. But this jaw, this ramus here is the same. You guys have seen human skulls and what they look like, right? This ramus is the same as the back of ours. This condyle fits into the joint in the same way it does on our skull. But because of their diet, their teeth are designed. I'm not exactly sure what boars eat. I think they're omnivores, and they have slicing teeth. They have grinding teeth. Can you guys see this? This is a no, wait. This is the possum jewel. They eat insects or insectivores, and they have very, very sharp teeth. Okay, let's see. It's going to, there we go. Can you see that very sharp tooth? Nope. Sure. Oh, sorry, the kitty fell. If I open my microphone, okay, now it'll bring it up onto the main screen. See this very sharp teeth? This is from an insectivore. See the ramus where it goes into the skull is very similar to that of the boar's ramus. But their teeth are specialized for the niche of eating insects. Raccoons are omnivores, and they have, you can't see it, I've lost a lot of the teeth out of this, but they have shearing incisors.
So it was sort of a whirlwind.
Yeah, poaching is illegal because poaching means that you don't have authorization to hunt animals in that place. And so it's not protecting the animals, it's protecting people's personal property, their right to hunt that area. But see, raccoons being omnivores have incisors, they have sharp teeth, and they have molars. Reptiles, on the other hand, can you see this reptile? Where's the camera? There it is. Can you see those little peg teeth? This thing is homodontic. Homodontic means all its teeth are the same. And so this is a big old iguana. And this iguana, they're actually herbivores, except for the juvenile, like the young males. They have a period of like insect eating or something, but for the most part, they're omnivores that'll eat your squash blossoms.
I don't know. I mean, where would the story go if they didn't have Jamie
And duck. I don't have the duck's bottom jaw. It's in there in that bag I didn't feel like sorting through. Oh wait, here it is. I got lucky. I found it fast. It's stuck in the pelvis. Okay. Okay. So duck's bottom jaw. They don't have any teeth. They rely on eating plant matter and insects. But their strategy is to ingest the food, and they have a sac with stones in it. They will eat stones, and the sac, their gizzard, will process the food. So birds have evolved to not have teeth because they have a different process. But I don't know if you can see it very well, but look at that ramus here, where it attaches. It's still a similar thing to the way we have it. The iguana ramus broke off, so I can't show you that, but all these organisms come from that same basic template. The same way this is the femur of the opossum, and this is the femur of the duck. They're very similar bones.
I was bummed out.
Did anybody want to say anything?
I was so excited to go. Then I met Dawn, and
feel free to open your mic.
He used to like give me neck rubs.
Well, heck. Thank you, Ari. Okay, and let me pull down. I pulled out their the vertebrae of all these animals too. I'm afraid of mixing them up though. Birds have these weird long bones that go through all their vertebrae, and some of them on their legs, holding them together. So they have this interesting stability thing. Raccoons, on the other hand, have like little discs in between their vertebrae, making them more flexible. Default done. Does anybody want to open their mic and go ahead, open your mic. Okay. Dr. Bones, share video. Okay. Oh, for frick's sake. Oh, there. There it all is. So here are the different verts. So they see the bony spinal column, but because of their environment, because of the organism's needs, they're all just slightly different. Oh, there you can see the homodontic iguana jaw. The possum one with the shearing, serrated teeth, a lot of them are missing. They're heterodontic, but their teeth are specialized mostly for insect killing. There you can see incisors for piercing into things, and then shearing for eating meat. And the raccoon. And once again, ducks, no teeth, they have gizzards. Okay, have I properly skeeved people out because they're not used to looking at bones? Oh, cool, Sarah. You know what's really skeevy is I see roadkill and I have to pull over. I have a special bucket and net to attach it to the top of my car, and then I have to go home and deflesh it. I've made myself an outdoor lab in the back. Oh, cool. Crab pincers are neat. I've seen the crystal ones. Buying a reassembled skeleton like my mom did, like with this squirrel vertebrae, it's a lot of money. So yes, and it stinks. The last one I got was so horrific. It smelled bad, and then I left it in a bucket in my backyard. And the next day, I actually had a panic attack from the smell because my body was saying, get away from this. It's really decayed and putrefied. And I had to stand there and process it. It was an unpleasant thing. Oh, here is the boar teeth that I was talking about. You can get a better angle on it this way. Let's see. And there, unfortunately, is the piercing from the bullet. Well, I'm assuming they ate it. Boar meat is pretty good. It tastes like pig, obviously. Okay. Anything else about this before I move on, guys? Okay. I'm moving on because I've done my bit with the bones. It worked out pretty good. Not as good as I wanted, but that's okay. I'm going to make Dr. Bones log out. That's all. She should be gone. Okay. I really wish you would talk to me. I feel so lonely in here. Okay. Share audio. Okay. So yeah, you can see the basic building blocks that all organisms share. Oh, if you get a chance, look up, or do I want to show it to you? Frick, I want to show it to you. I'm bored with this now, so let me move it. See, if this was a real class, that would have got a giggle. Okay, so Tasmanian tiger skull, convergent evolution. Images. Okay. This is a good picture. Open, no, not link, open picture, new tab. Okay. Share. Okay. So if you look here, one of these is a marsupial and the other is a wolf. They have the same features. They have evolved in their niches to be predators. And you think because they have a similar skull, that ridge on the top of their head, you do see it, right? Yes. So this ridge on the top of their skull is a sagittal crest. And it's pronounced because there's a lot of muscle attachment there. These flared cheekbones, the cheekbones are the zygomatic arch. And if they're big, that's because muscles go through and attach to them. And of course, they have like very powerful muscle attachments. And you would think because they look alike, they're related. But the one with the red underline is actually a marsupial, and it's far more closely related to kangaroos than it's related to any of the other regular placental mammals. So if you draw a cladogram, which is an evolutionary family tree, I don't have a pen to do it, but if you draw it out, the placental mammals diverged like before the shrews, and then the early marsupials, like you get the echidna. Oh, thank you, sweetie. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'm going to draw this diagram for you. So here we have like early mammals, and then like placental mammals are here, and marsupials, like, so we get a shrew-like animal, and then we have other placental mammals. We have mice, and then over here we have like wolverines. Over here we have like the wolves. This, you have the shrew type thing, and then you have possum-like animals, koalas, kangaroos, and the Tasmanian tiger is parallel to the wolves. They're not even closely related, but because of convergent evolution, and this being the most useful way, having big muscles, sharp teeth, these pronounced canine teeth, is the best way, I guess, to be a predator. They have convergent evolution, just like bat wings and bird wings are convergent evolution because it's the best way to fly. Okay, I think it's cool. Anything before I move on with that? Anybody want to talk to me? Share screen. Oh, I could have shared a whiteboard. Oh well. Such is life. I'm just an old-fashioned kind of girl this way. Okay. Look at the chimp's, can you see the chimp's front feet or front hands? Do you see how curved they are and how bowed the arm is? That's what they were talking about. This is a quadrupedal animal. The chimp is designed to walk on four legs. It can stand upright and do things on two legs, but it's designed specifically as a bipedal animal. And so its knuckles are curved for knuckle walking, its arms bowed to take that extra pressure. Its pelvis is also designed to be a quadruped. It's a more flat pelvis. Okay. So this is that divergent cladogram I was talking about. Instead of showing, like in the Linnaean system, shows how things are related by how close their names are, the cladogram is a taxonomy. Taxonomy is an important word. A system to categorize things. And the cladistic shows where we diverged. And this would have been when I split you all up into the activity, but that's not going to work. Let's take a 5-minute break. It's 3:30 now. I'm going to then talk about primates and how we're alike and different from other primates. And then we'll talk about the readings. So 5 minutes, we good? Yay, I need a break too. Thank you for answering me. I do appreciate it.